I mentioned in the previous video how, as a reader, or the readers get the sense that the speaker is talking about a sense of division, racial division, cultural division. We can then think about the period during our own country's history when that was a huge issue. So I happen to know Komunyaku's background a little bit. He's older. He probably grew up in the 50s, 50s, maybe 60s. I'm not sure. I would have to check his age. But I believe his upbringing would reflect this time period. So still, we don't want to confuse the speaker and the author, but often, you know, the speaker, what the speaker is saying is going to be informed maybe by the author's experiences. So we will pick up with this white girl who moved with ease on her side of the world as if she were the only living thing. So what does that suggest? I mean, surely she's not the only living thing, but she moves as if she were the only living thing. We might ask, what does this say about the speaker's, what the speaker is observing and his mind frame? To him, she moves as if she were the only living thing. So he seems to be rather fascinated by her. You know, his attention is totally drawn to her. But it also says something about her. She moves as if she were the only living thing. And if the class were in front of me, if you guys were in front of me, we could talk about, you know, what that means. Her breasts rose like swamp orchids on the water's rhythm, along an old path, suckholes and whirlpools reaching down for years. So I do want to bring up the image of like, swamp orchids. So now, these are orchids, and I don't know specifically which ones are considered swamp orchids. That's a really sort of vague term to use. I'm not sure that it's technical in any way. But here we have images of swamp orchids, and it turns out that these are from Louisiana. So I know the poet is from Louisiana, and this might give us a pretty good idea of the description, the image that's being used there. Except, you know, we know that the girl is white, so we might imagine, you know, white swamp orchids, but it may not be so much about the color, it may be more about the way that they float on the water, perhaps. That's a possibility too. It's a rather interesting image. It's kind of making her seem like, you know, she's a part of like the life in that area, like the floral life in that area. And then we have this idea of, you know, they're like swamp orchids on the water's rhythm. So the water has its own life, you know, its own, I don't want to say heartbeat, although rhythm makes me think of heartbeat. Along an old path, suckholes and whirlpools reaching down for years. So this reminded me very much of when we were reading Deliverance, and Ed is describing the river's distance, and he doesn't describe it in terms of like physical distance, he describes it in terms of time. It's like reaching into the evening. And so this part of the poem reminded me very much of that sentence in Deliverance when he describes here the suckholes and whirlpools reaching down for years. Like we don't know how long. Like it's not even measurable. It's just been, the water's just been swirling and flowing down. I can almost imagine like for eons, you know, maybe not literally, but a very long time. It's not measured. So I think we know what suckholes and whirlpools are. Pulls the water down. 100 yards away, the Black Baptists from Tree of Life and Sweet Beulah dunked white-robed boys and girls. So there's a baptism that's taking place in the creek, right? I assume that the tree of life and sweet Beulah, I mean, what does that mean? What does that refer to? It's capitalized, so I'm thinking it's the name of the church. And again, if I had a class in front of me, I wouldn't just readily tell you these details. I would, try to elicit them from you. I would ask questions, and then I would base what I said next on what you told me as a response. And so by using that information, I would help us move through the poem and bring our attention to information that we need to look at more closely. So a baptism is taking place in this creek, and we don't know how far away exactly it is from where Salome is skinny dipping. Well, it does say 100 yards away, but she's not aware of it, or if she is, she doesn't care, right? Obviously, these people don't see her. I imagine it's a creek with, it could have some bends in the creek, or, plant life kind of blocking people's view. The fishing cork danced and then disappeared, but I couldn't move in my tall greenness. So why the fishing cork? What is he doing there? So he's looking at the fishing cork, and it danced, and then it went under the water, but he couldn't move. So people would often use corks as bobbers. I mean, now there are bobbers that you can buy at the store, like red and white ones, and they tell you if a fish is tugging on the line, but corks would float. So he's using a cork as a bobber. So he's fishing. So he's not just there spying on her. He actually, has a reason for being there. So he just, he happens to see her. Who knows? Maybe the fishing is a pretense for being there so that he can watch her, because maybe he knows she's going to show up. Nevertheless, he's fishing. The cork disappears, so a fish is biting his line, but he can't move. He can't move. He's there. He's entranced. He's watching this girl. I think the line, "move in my tall greenness," is really interesting, because it's possible that it could be looked at in a couple different ways. And I will pick up with that line when I come back to the next video.